we are planting seeds that we don't always get to see bloom. A lot of times, especially when you're in the thick of it day in, day out, it is really hard to see the impact that you're making. It is really hard to know that any sort of, the needle is shifting at all. And it's really, really easy to fall into melancholy and to be like, well, what's the point of any of this? Why are we doing any of this if it's all pointless? And if the kids hate me and if the kids hate math, and like, what's the point of any of this? And sometimes you don't necessarily know what the thing is that leaves the impact. What's the thing is that just needs time to germinate, that just needs a little care, a little water, a little sunshine, a little love to bloom. And you might not be around to see it bloom, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen. It doesn't mean you didn't matter.
Welcome to Blue Glasses Math. In this podcast, we will explore how our self-perception as math teachers and learners influences our approach to life. Whether you identify as a math enthusiast or not, this podcast is for you. Are you a teacher, a parent, a school administrator, or a student? Join me as we shift our perspective on what it means to be a math person. Let's take a look. All right, well, welcome back to Blue Glasses Math, and I am thrilled to be joined here by Shelby Strong. Hi, Shelby. I'm so glad you're here today. How's it going?
Happy to be here, Pam.
So
it's going
fun.
really well. We just wrapped up the APME conference, Association of Teachers of Mathematics in New England. Had a fantastic conference, so I'm happy to be coming down from that and here with you.
Yeah, you're like post-conference because you and I met in person at NCSM and NCTM just about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I feel like I'm still coming down from that experience.
Very much so.
It was a lot of fun. So fun. But part of the reason why I invited you on the podcast is because I just kept seeing you everywhere in those conference spaces. And I'm like, this woman is so friendly and super like, people just want to talk to her. So I'm like, people want to talk to Shelby. So I need to talk to Shelby. Yeah.
Well, yay. I love that. I mean, I was telling you before, I genuinely really love people. I love hearing their stories. I love getting to know them. And if people needs to be at the heart of what we do, if it's not, then we're doing it wrong.
100%. And I just feel like right now, this human like aspect of curiosity and emotions and all the things has to be part of our math conversation. And I just have such a good time at those conferences because I love watching people like embrace. I know that sounds like wild.
I had that same, wait, stop. I had that exact same conversation during, I think it was TM, where I saw two people see each other for the first time in months and just hug. And I turned to the person next to me and I was like, this is what I love. I love seeing these moments. And they were like, what? And I was like, no, but like, look at what just happened. Two people who have known each other, who coexist in spaces, but get to be in person together and embrace and be excited and be happy and joyous. Like, I love that. Like, I love what happens to me, but I also love watching it for other people too.
And it was over and over and over again through the entire week of people. I'd hear people like, I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's you. I mean, even I saw, no, I've never met Jo Boaler in person. Well, I met her once like at a thing that she was doing, but it was a million people and it was several years ago. I saw her checking in for the hotel and I literally like leapt over the velvet ropes in the Marriott. I'm like leaping over the things. I'm like, Jo Boaler, and I'm like, and I gave her a hug and I'm like, I can't believe and she was so accepting and like, I don't know, like she knew who I was because she'd been on the podcast, but that's it. I mean, it was really like, we've had one conversation, but that was
Elham Kazemi for me. Like,
yes.
I asked someone to introduce me to her because I've been such a fan of her work. And someone was like, this is Shelby Strong. Like, do you know Shelby Strong? And she like looked at my name badge, looked at me and she was like, yes. And I burst into tears. And so I don't know if you're watching Elham, but I'm really sorry for putting you in that position. But I was just so overwhelmed of like, what is happening right now? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like
that's my life. I'm a chaotic emotional mess, and I'm at 100 basically at all times, which is super great for my introvert husband. He loves that about me.
And I'm an extroverted introvert, so like I love this, but I can be. I actually scheduled time after I had a recording right before this. I'm like I scheduled time after. I'm like I need to take a nap. I'm actually not going to take a nap because a friend of mine says we have to go do something. But I'm like, I just need to rest. I need quiet. Anyway. But I love this, but I'm like so energized by being here with you. Thank you so much. So, all right, I start every episode with the question, what is your math story? And how specifically, like, do the moments in your math story contribute to what you do now? And like, tell us a little bit about what you do now.
Yeah, so I was that student who didn't really try too hard at school, but still managed to pull off good grades. Anyway, I know I am already setting a really great tone for like how likable and approachable I am. But like I just school was just school. It was a thing that you did and you got your grades and it was whatever. That did not work freshman year. I had to retool some things and but like I didn't have any particularly strong feelings about what I wanted to do. So I went to school to be a psychologist and then I thought about it and said, well, anytime that I had a problem in high school, I went to my teachers. That those were my therapists. So I switched my major to education and then had a really hard time in calculus. I mostly breezed through a lot of my math classes. I hit a wall when it came to calculus. That my transcripts show calculus over and over and over again of me just like failing or withdrawing. It is a disaster. And because as a society, we've equated being good at math with being smart, when I was no longer good at math, I had an identity crisis
Oh
of
no.
who am I now? And like, am I still smart? And so I somehow or another like muscled through, got a C, C's or get degrees, off we go. Um, and took more math classes somehow. And I took linear algebra and discrete structures with this man, Dr. Craig Jensen, who changed my life because he asked us to prove why the product of two odd numbers was always odd, like why the sum of two even numbers was always even. And we did it together as a class. And no one had ever asked me why things in mathematics worked before. They'd given me rules. Like I knew that it was true that the product of two odd numbers was always odd, but had never I didn't know there was a reason. I thought it was just a rule that someone said so, and so you did it. And so I switched my major that week to now being a math education major. Um, Met some people, some beautiful, wonderful people in the computer science department who told me, like, hey, you should actually get a degree in math. And I said, hey, that's a great idea in case I hate kids. Turns out it's all good. I love kids, and like I didn't need the backup plan. Um, so I went into teaching with this intention of like I'm going to teach the children how the math works and everyone's going to love me and I'm going to demystify math all by myself. Here we go. Spoiler alert, that's not what happened. I very quickly fell into my old habits, the ways
Mm.
that I had been taught, because nothing was maintaining that for me. My professional development wasn't developing me professionally and wasn't allowing me to continue that passion and that belief of we should understand why we're doing the things that we do. And so a couple of things happened along the way that got me back to that. Which the first was MitBoss, the math Twitter blogosphere on Twitter,
Yes.
and the community that formed
I've never
around
heard it
that.
be called Mit Boss. I guess I'm not in the cool club. I was
Well,
an
there's
MTBOS.
been a lot like trust me, someone will come for me for saying it that way because there's a lot of debate on how you say it. And then I accidentally found myself in a PD session on partial quotients. And I was a secondary teacher. I taught middle and high school. So I'm in this fourth grade session having my world be rocked because I could suddenly see all of these different applications to the content that I was teaching in how elementary students were learning now. And I had spent a lot of time slagging off elementary teachers and elementary math post Common Core. And I suddenly realized that I was speaking from a place of ignorance, that I didn't realize just how powerful these transformations that were happening in elementary were to my practice, how much easier my job could be if we implemented these things and truly got kids thinking about why math behaves the way that it does. So it sort of reaffirmed that early decision that made me want to be a math teacher in the first place. And that sort of led me to where I am now. I got a master's from Mount Holyoke in math leadership and really spent even more time getting humbled about all the math that I thought I knew and didn't, and ended up relocating from New Orleans to Massachusetts and working as a coach and consultant and supporting schools and districts across New England with helping adults feel more confident and competent in their ability to do math so that way they could go make those experiences happen for kids.
Amazing. So I want to go back a minute ago. You were talking about, okay, when you were talking about how you had all these grand plans that you're going to go in and change the world and, be that one who fixes everything. But then you reverted to your quote unquote old ways. And so before you had your PD experiences that opened your minds, before the partial questions, what do you think? And the reason I asked this question for a reason, because I think that this is a more common than people realize, is that, first of all, most elementary school teachers get one or two math classes. Let's just be honest, math education classes in
Yeah.
most programs right
Most
now,
secondary teachers also get one or two math methods classes at most. Let's be super clear.
which is
Yeah.
a big
Yeah.
problem, right? Because,
Mhm.
well, we know why the reason. We don't need to go down the rabbit hole of why that's a problem, but maybe that's another episode. But
Part
but
two, what's wrong with math teacher preparation programs?
yes, that's 100%. We've got to change something there, because then what happens is, maybe you have this amazing professor who teaches you some different cool methods, and you have experiences maybe in your student teaching. Then you get in your own classroom, and sometimes we revert back to our old ways. So what do you think it was that had you reverting back to the, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but, well, first of all, like, describe to me, the listeners,
Yeah.
what was it like you went back to, whatever that means?
So I think it's really important, and I know that your listeners know this, to acknowledge that teaching is freaking hard. It's
So hard.
it is the
So
most
hard.
demanding. Like, it is so cute to me when women in particular are like, I'm gonna go into teaching because I'm gonna have summers off and I'm gonna have time with my family. Like, I have more time with my son now than I ever did when I was in the classroom because I am not grading packs of papers at home. I'm not like going and supervising things. I'm not running this club or going to this event. Like, I get to be present for my family. Um, so because teaching is such a demanding job and because there are only so many hours in the day, when things start to pile up, it's like, okay, I just need to get them to be able to do this topic. I just need them to produce a result. I just need them to get the answer right on the test. And that might work in the short term. It might work on this test, but do they retain it by the end of the year? It might work for this year, but what happens in a couple of years? What do they actually hold on to from this trick that I gave them just to get them through? And I see this over and over and over again. I had a sweet, sweet girl, a sixth grader, who very confidently told me during our integers unit that 7 minus 9 was 2 because my teacher told me you always take the smaller number from the bigger number. And it took me like 2 months to change her mind. And that's the kind of thing where, because there's this press for this press for time, because there is this demand around test scores and all these, like, oh, the children are failing, what are we doing to the children, like, America sucks, whatever. All these things that we put in the laps of teachers as though teachers are the only thing that has any influence on any of this. You just kind of are searching for that thing that gets it done, and you kind of sort of remember that it got it done when you were in school, even if it made you hate math. Like, it got the job done, quote unquote. And that's part of what I'm starting to examine now is, when I hear that now, I think, okay, but what job? To
Yeah.
what end? To what purpose? Like, what is actually the goal? Is the goal
Yes.
answer production? Computers can do that. We, like, the space race is done. We did it. We got to the moon. We are now living in an era where, like, the answers are like, I'm not going to say answers aren't important, because somebody will come in and be like, but what about if you need to build a bridge? Okay, we get it, Spencer. Like, fine, whatever. But that's not really what matters. Like, what
No.
matters is understanding. What matters is critical thinking. What matters is, why did this go wrong? So again, thinking about space, there was some project that they built that crash landed into where they were supposed to go instead of gently landing, because one person was working in one unit of measure and one person was working in the other. Critical thinking should tell us that we, like, one, that we even know that, like, what went wrong. Oh, like, let's look back and examine what happened. And two, prevent that from happening in the first place. And that can't happen without school. School is supposed to be the place where we are safe to make mistakes. School is supposed to be the place where we learn what happens when things go off the rails. What happens if I try this thing and it doesn't work out? Because if we don't give children the chance to explore in that playground in school, well, when the heck are they supposed to do it?
Fair. So fair. And I agree with
I
you
don't know if
about,
that answered your question. I
well,
kind
it
of went on a
did.
tangent there.
Oh, well, you answered the question by basically saying when we go, I'm going to summarize what you said. It was basically like when, you've got all these pressures of test scores and curriculum limitations and not a lot of time.
And
Sometimes we
angry
default.
family members being like, why are you doing these things this way? Why are you teaching math this way? And this is so confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, it's okay. I think I saw a brilliant talk by Deborah Shifter at Mini about embracing confusion and about how confusion itself is a really necessary aspect of learning. And I deeply appreciated hearing that because we talk about mistakes all the time and like mistakes are fine and like that's one component of it, but confusion is really, really important. And I think a lot of times we stifle confusion and we stifle, like, well, why does that work? Or I don't understand that. And the main takeaway that I got from her talk was that confusion deserves to be examined. It deserves to be resolved. And we might not get to that in a 45-minute time block, but it does deserve to be voiced. And I think that we are in a time where any expression of confusion is misidentified as incompetence.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. And I think there's this level of need. There's a need for comfort all the time.
Mm,
And I'm like, it's not always going to be comfortable. And if we make everything so comfortable for students until one day it's not comfortable, that is going to create a bigger problem than if we had little, I don't want to like micro fissures along the way, because
yeah,
it's like building muscle, right? It's like you have to tear muscle in order to build muscle. So in that tearing muscles,
absolutely.
you're going to get sore. You're going to have cranky, whatever muscles. But I think that's a great point of the confusion, right? Of like embracing that confusion is a part of the human experience of learning anything, right? And math class is an amazing place to foster that type of development. But
Exactly.
yeah, so you
But we
answered
have to
my
give it the
question
space
really
to do
well.
so.
We
Yeah.
have to give it the space. We have to give teachers the time and the space and the permission to not have everything look perfect all the time in the classroom. Like, and what does perfect look like? Go,
But can I add on to that?
please.
Is that you're saying that teachers need to give that space to students, but how often do administrators and leaders give that space to teachers?
And that's where I was going. Exactly. That's
Yes. All right,
right.
we're on it.
No, we're on it because I'm like, because what I like people. Okay, so often when I'm coaching teachers, not hasn't happened recently, but in the beginning of my coaching experience, I would have teachers say, "But what if an administrator walks in? Like, this is all great, Pam, but what if an administrator walks in?" And I'm like, tell them that Pam said to do it. I mean, like, and that was a terrible answer because I look back and I'm like, how did that empower these teachers? It really didn't. But I was really green
No,
in my
it's so I don't
coaching.
think it's
But
about empowerment. I think it's about like saying that I that you have someone in your corner, that this wasn't just someone going rogue, that this was like because I'm assuming someone was paying you to be there
oh
to
yeah,
do that. So
yes,
by saying Pam told me to do it, it's saying like the person that you paid to be here to help me is doing exactly that, and this is this is what you paid
this is
for.
the end result.
Like
Yes, this is what you paid for, like it or not. But also, I think what I wanted to do, what I do now more, is give teachers the agency of, well, why do you think this is a more productive way to teach this
mm,
particular topic? Because then it becomes a coaching move. Then it's like, well,
yeah,
let's examine this, right? Because if I can, it's like to give a person a fish or give them a fishing
you
pole
know
or
what, that's a good
whatever,
point. That's a
right?
good point.
But I mean, I think it's both. I think it's both. I think I agree with you about this is what you paid for and this is what we're doing. But I think the bigger question that I was always like, why are you so afraid? But I understand now, right? Now I
Oh,
understand,
I
right?
deeply understand.
Right?
I have this conversation with teachers all the time of like, I'm fully aware that everything that I say is just a suggestion because it comes down to a suggestion from me and a directive from your leadership. You're going to go with the person who signs your checks. I completely understand that 1,000%, which is why I think it's so important that our work is not just directed at teachers, because teachers get it from 1,000 different directions of what they should and shouldn't be doing and how they should save the children or else they're ruining the children. And one teacher in a room can only do so much.
Yeah.
It has to come from higher than that. It has to be a building level, this like it has to be a building level culture. It has to be a district level culture of what do we truly value, because what you value is what you prioritize. And if we say that we care about kids being competent mathematicians, when do we prioritize that? How do our actions back that up? If we say that we care about kids being critical thinkers, when do we prioritize that? If we say that we want teachers to have classrooms where children are allowed to make mistakes and express confusions, when are teachers allowed to make mistakes and express confusions? When do they get an opportunity to, in some cases, rewrite their mathematical stories and build up new experiences that allow them to see what math could be, particularly what math could be in community? Because I suspect many teachers are like myself, where in school, math was an independent activity. I did not know that you could do math with people that was more than just, hey, what did you get for number 12? Until college.
Right.
And that's too
Until
late.
that, what was his name? Dr. Jensen?
Dr. Jensen. And
Dr.
even past
Jensen.
Dr. Jensen, like I remember preparing for an abstract algebra course, and of our own free will, over the winter break, holed up in the third floor of the math building on the University of New Orleans campus until 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, staring at this whiteboard with my friends, solving like one problem or two, and like having to occasionally go out and take a break and like just go outside and decompress and talk about something else in our lives, but then turning around and going right back in and getting to it again and having these breakthroughs and like, oh, what if we tried this, and scribbling these things over here. And that was the first time that I realized, oh, I don't have to go this alone, that working with other people actually makes me better. And that that experience was really formative for me, that math didn't have to be something that you did by yourself or else that was it. Because I mean, in writing, we have editors, we have peer
Yes.
reviews, we
Fair.
have in the scientific community, you have other people that you work with. The whole thing is supposed to be that you make something reproducible. Like, the humans are not meant to do things in isolation all the time. And yet math, we go, okay, off by yourself, little darling.
Put your
But only
folders
in
up.
K-12, because mathematicians, like university mathematicians and people who are like professional mathematicians, don't do it alone either.
So community. So
Community.
community. Doing math in community is really what seems to have been a breakthrough for you.
It really
And
has.
yeah, and I feel the same way. I mean, it's like getting just even this forum of having conversations with people, with like-minded individuals, and some of us just, I don't always agree with everybody, you know. I mean, a lot of time I'm a pretty agreeable person, but that's a character flaw that I have to work on.
But I also think that like there's a difference between being agreeable and being a doormat, right? Like
Hmm.
you can be agreeable and say, I understand your perspective, and I don't know that I agree with it, and like, or I'm curious about this aspect of it. I saw Vanessa Viccaria and Pam Harris do this recently on an
Oh,
episode
I
of
saw
their
that.
podcast, where
Yes.
they thought that they were in disagreement about it, but through conversation realized all they disagreed about was the actual term itself, but
The
the
word.
underlying concept they were actually in total agreement. It was just, what do you call that thing? And I think
Yes.
that happens a lot. So Justin Ion and I would do this session on, we called it "Is a tuna melt a pizza?" Uh, which
Is it
led to
tuna
my
melt?
favorite line of all time that I'm not going to say on this podcast because I'm not going to haunt you. So if you want to know,
Okay,
come
thank
find
you.
me later.
Okay.
But ultimately, we would ask people that everyone's favorite question is a hot dog a sandwich. But then we would say, okay, but in order to answer that question, you actually have to answer a more important question, which is, what is a sandwich? And already I can hear the principals losing their mind saying, what the hell does this have to do with math class? It matters because then we get to things like, well, what is an expression versus an equation? What is a solution versus an answer? What are like it, in order to have meaningful conversations, what is math class? What is fluency? To have those conversations, if we're saying those words, but we hold different definitions of what they mean, then we're just talking past each other. So we start with something lighthearted and silly like sandwiches, but we use it to branch into something that's really at the core of who we are as people, which is, when we are communicating, do we actually understand each other? So we have to have a shared definition. It doesn't have to be the definition that holds for all time, but the definition that we hold for this moment, for the purposes of this conversation. When we say this word, this is what we mean. And I think that we need to do that more often. And I think that we don't, because of what we were talking about earlier, confusion being misaligned as incompetence. That if I take the moment to pause and define what I mean when I say this word, what are you going to assume about me and what I know?
And what that makes me think of is that it's this idea of community and listening to one another, which I think is something we just don't do enough, right? We consume, we hear, we scroll, we watch, right? But are we really listening to the stories? And that's why I start, I don't start the episodes with, what is your math story, because it's buzzy and it's, a lot of people are talking about. It's because I sincerely think that it's so important to get the perspective of the other person in order to understand how that person then will operate in the space. And that listening piece is so critical. Yeah. And I don't think
How
I've
you
ever,
show up in this space is in a lot of ways defined by the experiences you have and who you are. Yes, 1,000% yes.
yeah. And so it's interesting. I've never explained why I start the podcast with that, but I think I probably should be more explicit about it. That it's like, it's not because I want people to just be like, fill some space for the first 3 or 4 minutes of the episode. Also, this just made me think of, I was with teachers yesterday and I asked them a question that was a little unconventional at the beginning. I said, wouldn't it be nice if, and I gave everybody a post-it note, and they were like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you're interventionists. It's a room full of interventionists for grades kindergarten all the way through grade 8. Wouldn't it be nice if? And they were like, the richness that came out of that after that conversation was like, right? Because I think you said a minute ago, like you don't understand what somebody wants unless you understand. You don't understand. How do I want to say this? Maybe I don't know. I'm struggling with what I'm trying to put together here to make it succinct, but
Understand what a
it
person wants, you have to know who they are,
you
I
have to know
think.
who they are, yeah, and you have to know what where their perspective is, right? And so
Yeah.
a lot of times we launch into, and this happens in math classes too, like problem of the day, and trust me, I was 100% guilty of this. Problem of the day, let's go, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now with routines like notice and wonder and which one does not belong, we get a lot more data about where the perspective, what the perspective of the student is. We call it formative assessment, but it's really perspective. It's both. So I don't know. So let's talk about doing math in community. So we talked about this a little bit before we started recording. So doing math in communities, I know we've been kind of talking about it, but like, what do you mean by, like, for teachers, right? So we get these teachers, they come out of undergrad, they're ready to go. They go revert back because it's comfortable to whatever was safe and whatever. And you said that doing math in communities is just something that really helped your professional growth.
Yep. So, uh, 2022, I'm at the Indianapolis Regional NCTM conference where a bunch of us are standing around after a session, and this will come as a shock to anyone who knows me, I'm complaining.
Not Shelby.
I know. What? Shelby has opinions on things? Wild. I'm complaining specifically about how unreasonable I think it is that we have made so many demands on teachers to change everything that they think that they know about teaching, to do this explorative learning, to do this problem-based inquiry learning, and they haven't had a chance to understand what that is for themselves. They haven't experienced it themselves, that they have, it's just been like, do it, like here's the new thing that we all agree is the thing, and just go do it, and if you don't do it, we're all going to hold you accountable for it and blame you for the sins of the world. And I am just furious about how unreasonable I think that is, that you're saying that you want students to have all this conceptual understanding and you've never given teachers an opportunity to form it for themselves. And Annie Fetter looks at me and says, okay, so let's do something about it.
Oh my God, I just got the literal goosebumps, but butterflies in my stomach.
Yeah, and when Annie Fetter tells you to do something, you do it. So
Yes.
so she and I got together and started dreaming about what this could look like. And we tweeted about it, because if we didn't tweet about it, we were going to forget about it and it was just going to be dust in the wind. And Annie Forrest saw it. It was like, oh, yes, I'm in. What are we doing? Let's go. And so together we dreamed up this thing called the Math Routine Collaborative. And what the Math Routine Collaborative was, we were like, it was 2022, so we're starting to come out of lockdown and we're still kind of socializing, but everybody knows what Zoom is now. And we decided that summer, once a week, we were going to host a Zoom room and do a math routine together. And we were going to have participants be in the routine as learners,
Mm-hmm.
but we know teachers. We don't turn our teacher brains off. They were going to have questions about why we asked this, or what do you do when a kid says this, blah, 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 blah. And so we also gave them a participant slide deck where they could type those things, because we
Cool.
wanted to talk about them. We just wanted to preserve the learning of the routine in the moment. And
That's a really
By
cool
week 3
idea.
we hit our Zoom occupancy limit, like, and we had to upgrade our Zoom to let more people in, because even though it was the summer, people, like, some, I don't even know how the word got out. I don't even know how people found out about us, because we were talking about it on Twitter, but not everybody's on Twitter. There were people there who had no idea who we were and had just been told, go to this thing. And what I loved about it was we started sort of, twisting it and really responding to what people were telling us they needed. And what some people were telling us was, I hear about this in elementary, but I need to know what it looks like in secondary, or I need to know what this looks like. You're giving me a geometry example, but what does this look like algebraically? And so we started running the routines 2 or 3 times in a session, so we could compare and contrast those experiences, and so that facilitators afterwards could tell us, like, where were they planning on going with, like, what was the objective of the routine? How did a participant question end up making them either veer off course and have a new perspective, or how did they loop that into their original goal? What happens when a kid says this, and have you experienced that before? And what happens if it goes off the rails, or if a kid says this? And we would say, like, hey, anytime that you have a question of, like, what would you do if a kid says this, be that kid, ask that thing, test this in real time and see how we respond. We had this incredible rota of guest facilitators who would come in and do routines with us, routines that they were known for and routines that they weren't known for. We got to learn about some really cool new routines. Mark Chubb came and did some fantastic spatial reasoning routines with us, but we also did some classic standards. You notice and wonder, which one doesn't belong, your number talks, the things that people across the country are being asked to implement in their classroom, but not being told how or why. And they go do it once and it fails, and then they blame the kids, or they blame the routine, or they blame themselves. We wanted to give a space for, okay, what does that actually look, sound, feel like? And let's, as a community of professionals, as
Yeah.
peers, like, make sense of this together as learners and then as facilitators. And so we did it once a week in the summer of 22. We kept it going for the school year 22-23, once a month. And then life kind of caught up with all of us and it petered out for a little while. And in Atlanta, I saw Annie and I said, every time we see each other, we say we're bringing it back. Let's do it for real. And she said, all right, let's do it for real.
Amazing.
And so it's coming back in January of 26.
Oh, I'm so excited because I was wearing,
Now
I
that
was
I've
like,
said it on your podcast, it really does need to happen
no, it
now.
needs to happen. And I'm gonna make a reel. I'm gonna cut that part out, and it's coming. It's like your little advertisement. Oh, that's
Yes,
fantastic. Well, I'm definitely coming. I'm gonna come and check that out. That's amazing.
it's a great time.
So fun.
And I think what was really amazing about it was the facilitators. Like, we know this, facilitating adult learning is very different from experience
Oh yeah.
from facilitating children's learning. And there's a really delicate line you have to walk with treating adults as, like, professional adults, but also as people deserving of learning. And sometimes that's a hard line to walk for some people. So we learned a lot about facilitating adult learning, but we also learned a lot about community and a lot about, like, being given a space to make mistakes, to express confusion, to wonder about what if. And so the facilitators got a lot out of it, but the participants got a lot out of it. Like, we asked for feedback at the end of it to just see if it was making a difference, if we were actually doing the thing that we claimed that we wanted to do. And someone wrote back and told us that they had been searching for something like this because they would take what they had learned with us and go immediately implement it in their classroom the next day, and that it was completely changing how they approached doing math routines in their class, that it was completely changing their perspective on student participation and student ownership and student agency in their class. And that, to me, was everything that we'd set out to accomplish. We just wanted people to feel empowered and to feel like they had a space where they belonged, and a space where they felt like they could try on some thinking that felt a little uncomfy and be okay. And, like, have a community of people to go, I tried this out, it didn't work, what did you do? And, like, people formed incredible friendships out of that
Yes.
group. It was everything I wanted it to be. I'm really hoping it wasn't lightning in a bottle, and that we actually get to have that again when we bring it back in January. Um, yeah, I. It goes back to what you were saying at the very beginning of the podcast. Oh, Shelby knows everybody. I deeply care about people. I deeply care about people feeling welcome about people feeling like what they have to say matters, and that their experiences matter, and that their life matters, and that their expertise or their just anything about them that matters to them matters to me. And any way that I can leave some sort of imprint on the world where someone walks away from our time together better for it, certainly not worse for it, I feel like I did my job as a human on this blue dot for as long as I'm here.
Oh, Shelby, you're gonna make me cry. You're gonna make me cry. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. All right, so now this is a perfect segue into how I wrap up every conversation now. And always tell the story, but I think it's important to hear that I tell my husband is a super stoic, like black or white kind of guy, not super emotional. And we were driving in the car one day, and I was reading Brene Brown's book, Atlas of the Heart, and in that book she talks about all the different emotions and about where they come from and importance, whatever. And so I guess I was reading the page about hope. And I said, I think the perspective that I take of teaching, or that, many of us take of teaching and learning math, I think it can give us hope. I think learning math can give you hope. So now my question at the end, it's wrap up. Sorry. And the most important part of that story is that my husband started to cry right there in that moment. And I just asked him this morning, I said, do you remember that? He's like, oh, I remember exactly where we were driving. He was driving the car. And I looked over and I'm like, are you crying? He didn't cry when our kids were born. Like, what? And I'm like, he's like, that is really profound. So I'm like, okay, well, if it made a difference to you, and I really feel that way, that it gives you hope to be able to make mistakes and do all the things. But I'm not going to say much more, because my question to you is, what gives you hope right now in the math education space where we are right now?
What gives me hope is my son, because my son is currently a fourth grader, and he has me for a mom, bless him. And so I try all the things that I preach out on him, and y'all, I do not have a good success rate, because I try to ask this darling little angel like to tell me what he's thinking or to explain his reasoning, and he's like, I just did it in my head, ma, and moves on. And that doesn't sound like something that should give me hope. But what happens is that I go away to a conference. I'm halfway across the country, and I get a phone call from my husband that says, do you know what your son just told me? He said, did you know, Dad, that 6 spiders would have 42, no, 48 legs? I thought that they had 7 legs, but they have 8 legs. And so the 6 spiders would have 48 legs because each of them has 8 legs. And even the 42 part, like, that wasn't a stumble on my end. That was what my kid said.
Oh my
And that
gosh.
made me go, oh,
It's working.
he is listening. I wasn't there for it, but and the reason why that gives me hope for math education spaces is because of this thing that a lot of us have heard, but it's hard to believe is true, is that we are planting seeds that we don't always get to see bloom. And I think that a lot of times, especially when you're in the thick of it day in, day out, it is really hard to see the impact that you're making. It is really hard to know that any sort of, the needle is shifting at all. And it's really, really easy to fall into melancholy and to be like, well, what's the point of any of this? Like, why are we doing any of this if it's all pointless, and if the kids hate me, and if the kids hate math, and like, what's the point of any of this? And sometimes you don't necessarily know what the thing is that leaves the impact. What's the thing is that just needs time to germinate, that just needs a little care, a little water, a little sunshine, a little love to bloom. And you might not be around to see it bloom, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen. It doesn't mean you didn't matter. And so that's the thing that's giving me hope, because I am as happy and go lucky and sunshiny as I am also someone who is one of those people who will just sit in the dark of my room and be like, what's the point of any of this? Like, why am I even bothering? Why am I still in education? What is the point? I should just go be an actuary, like my dad said. Like,
My dad said the same thing. He's like, just go be an actuary. I'm like, oh, no, thank you.
and
No
and
offense to
that's really,
actuaries,
like,
but
that's what gives me hope, is the fact that, like, every now and then the seeds do bloom, and sometimes you're lucky enough to get to hear about it. Sometimes, if you're really lucky, you get to see it. And that doesn't happen if we all give up and stop planting.
Shelby, you're a poet.
I spend a lot of
was
time thinking about things.
stunning. That was stunning. Beautiful. Okay, if people wanted to connect with you, because I know now everybody's going to want to be your best friend, because, Shelby has a million friends and
I
needs
do,
just
and
a
I always
million
need
more.
more.
I always need more. I mean, I always need more. Where can
All
people
right.
find you? Where you hang out?
So I'm mostly on Blue Sky these days. Much like Big Bird's best friend, I am Snephalopagus, so with an E instead of a U. I am on LinkedIn. I'm there, sort of, kind of, whatever. I have an Instagram account. People tag me on Instagram, but I'm warning you right now that I really just don't use it very often. Like, I'm a words girl, not a pictures girl. But honestly, like, I'm really easy to find. Shelby at strongermath.com. If you see a tall ginger Amazon out in the wild and say, "Hey, Shelby," it's probably me. Yeah,
Amazing. Well, I'll put all that in the show notes, including
excellent.
the physical description. Fantastic. Oh man. All right. Well, thank you so much, Shelby, for giving me time on Saturday. I so appreciate your time, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing out in the world. Thank you so much for
Right
sticking
back
around
at
with
you,
us.
Pam. Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.
I'm Pam Brett. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Blue Glasses Math. Please follow me wherever you get your podcasts and follow along on the conversation on Instagram. And remember, being a math person is all just a matter of perspective.